Hi, I'm Brian Jewell. I'm promoting my book, Musings on Muggings and Other Violent Inconveniences, which was inspired by James LaFond and his Violence Project. Um, what I did was I took some of the stories I was going to share with James, and just James was like, "You're a writer," so I just, suggested I write them myself, so I did and put them in my book. One of the things I talk about, and this is in the last chapter, which is titled Musings on Muggings, is things you can do to avoid being mugged and finding yourself in situations where you potentially could be. One of those things is to avoid being in areas that aren't safe. Sometimes we can't avoid those areas, and I was wondering if James could speak a little on that. James is well traveled and knows about different areas around here and other places that maybe he could give us some advice on where to avoid or what to look for when you find yourself in a situation where you have to be in a particular neighborhood.
Well, you're probably talking about work. If there's a place you have to go that you'd rather not go. What I would suggest is, however you get there, let's say if you're a driver, it might sound crazy, have somebody else drive. People that are actively driving, I don't drive, okay, but I notice this. You people, when you're driving, are like trying not to hit these other drivers and their automobiles. You've got a lot of stuff to be worried about. And as a passenger, I can pick up on what's going on in the area a lot more than you can. So you have your friend or your spouse drive you to your new work location across a couple of routes while you look at it. Now, you can look for a lot of different cues, primarily trash. You really want to look at bus stops, and you want to look at wherever there's footpaths. That's in urban environments. You'll see footpaths like cutting right across the strip mall from a bus stop or whatever. You want to see what kind of junk is thrown there. If you're taking the bus, I suggest you walk it. That's what I always did. Even if it was 10 or 12 miles I was going to be taking the bus, I would walk the whole route so that I could map it in my mind, and if the bus broke down, I wouldn't be lost. I'd be able to walk back. Buses rarely take the most efficient routes. They wind around purposely to hit the most different spread out locations. And even when I would walk home, and the bus would break down, or I had to get off because there was a violent person on the bus, I'd walk along the bus route just in case another bus came along, I could get back on it. But if you're driving and you don't have a spouse to take you for a drive so that you can look for everything, then I'd suggest that you either walk it at like 6 in the morning on a Sunday, when there's really not going to be anybody out. The people that would normally attack you were up playing video games until 4 o'clock in the morning and went to bed drunk and high, so they're not going to be getting up till 11 o'clock. So one way would be to walk it. And the other thing would be, even if you are driving back and forth to work, take the mass transit. In case something happens with your car, you'll at least know what the bus line is, what it's like on there, how to take the whole thing. Your car might break down. You might have to get dropped off at work, and you don't want to be in a position of getting off in the evening when it's getting dark and having never taken that bus or train before, because there's an instinct that men have not to ask directions. That's a survival instinct. Women make fun of us over that because they live in a world where everybody's your friend, and including the policeman. But I never lived in that world, and when you start asking directions of local people, that person might be fine. For instance, if I'm at a bus stop and I'm the only guy that's a member of my race at this bus stop, and somebody wants to ask directions, they come over to me and they whisper the request, because they don't want any of these other people to know that they're asking directions, and they figure, wow, old guy, he's not going to mug anybody. So you have to be very careful about appearing to not know where you are. So that's one reason why I suggest you take multiple routes to and from your new work location, and do it mass transit, on foot, and as a passenger in a car at least, so you can observe it a lot more. People that are driving, by my estimation, as somebody that's only driven a couple times and I'm a passenger, they miss 90% of what's going on out there. And I won't point it out to them because I don't want them to get in an accident while I'm in the car. But people that drive just don't realize how much the act of driving takes up their attention. So I would practice just being a passenger on mass transit or in a car and checking out the route.
Yeah. Thank you, James.
Yeah.